Life is a journey from crucifixion to crucifixion. You know what it is to be born alone, baby. You know what it is to lose your only companion. A sensual feast of moist-fleshed lust charged with prickly pears, amorous donuts, and ruby-tinted nipples. Stephen tried to frame his lips into a whistle, but he could not. Lips refused to frame long or short. The Irishman never learns to talk until he is old or drunk. I will tell you what I will do and what I will not do. I will not serve that in which I no longer believe, whether it call itself my home, my fatherland, or my church. History, Stephen said, is a nightmare from which I am trying to awake. Words are the castanets of thought. His soul swooned slowly as he heard the snow falling through the universe and falling, like the descent of their end, upon all the living and the dead. When I die, Dublin will be written in my heart. I am a servant of two masters, Stephen said, an English and an Italian. The mother suckled the babe that was dead-born child. In the particular is contained the universal. A man's errors are his portals of discovery. Love loves to love love. I am tomorrow or some future day what I establish today. Aesthetic sympathy has to lie between surrender and revolt. The vocal muse, how terrible she is. When I wrote, I had no idea what I was doing or where it would lead. I wanted to hear these voices. The rage of the vulture, the voice of the turtle dove, the snarl of the lion, the howl of the wolf, the wrath of the poor. In evening's limpid air, what time the dews in the breeze of summertime. You must go to the country yourself, you must have adventures, take risks, you must feel the pain and the pleasure of your own experience. What sayest thou here? Child face. Whose face, laddie? Hers there. Gold cup, Grand National, Sovereign Prince, Miller's socks, waiter, pothook and nosebag, stately home, innocence, pink the lady, were some of his one-word bets. The Irishman hides his feelings behind humor, sharpness and detachment. It is the Englishman who keeps his feelings bottled up inside. Not know what you are but crooked like a corkscrew. He felt the immense power brooding over him, like a wingspread, and he closed his eyes in shame. One night as he sat at her feet, closing her eyes with his fingers and stroking her cheek, she suddenly, without warning, took his head between her hands and pressed his mouth to hers. Being alone when one desires to be alone is not such a lonely thing. But being alone when one desires to be with someone else, that is loneliness in its fiercest form. He looked down the slope and, at the base, in the darkness, something white near a house showed up distinctly, a wild white face. God made me the way I am and I accept myself. The Christian Brothers schools were all that stood between me and jail. By an epiphany he meant a sudden spiritual manifestation, whether in the vulgarity of speech or of gesture or in a memorable phase of the mind itself. Sunlight is the most precious gold. A man's errors are his portals of discovery. I am a fool, a damn fool, and a little ill. He smote his fist on his chest and sobbed, his heart's agony bursting from him in wild ejaculations. Writing in English is like throwing mud at a wall. A man of genius makes no mistakes. His errors are volitional and are the portals of discovery. The light tapped upon the window pane as if some hurried traveler tapped upon the door. I am not afraid to make a mistake, even a great mistake, because I am tomorrow what I established today. I am today what I established yesterday or some previous day. Reality, he says, is something you can't see with the eye, it's something you feel in your heart. History is the nightmare from which I am trying to awake. When I die, Dublin will be written in my heart. The pity is the public will demand and find a moral in my book, or worse, they may take it in some more serious way, and on the honor of a gentleman, there is not one single serious line in it. We walk through ourselves, meeting robbers, ghosts, giants, old men, young men, wives, widows, brothers-in-law. But always meeting ourselves. Think you are escaping and run into yourself. Longest way round is the shortest way home. I am happier than you are. Why be unhappy about something if it can be remedied? And what is the use of being unhappy if it cannot be remedied? A man who is only a consumer cannot be a writer. Love, that exempts no one who's loved from loving, took me so strongly with delight in him that, as you see, it still abandons me not. To learn one must be humble. But life is the great teacher. He solved the problem of the universe in a way that left everything as it was. There is not past, no future, everything flows in an eternal present. J. Marchai verse 11, les yeux fixes sur les passés. We are born astride a grave, the light gleams an instant, then it's night once more. Art is the human disposition of sensible or intelligible matter for an aesthetic end. Love is never quite the way one expects it to be. I am old enough to be your father. As we, or Mother Dana, weave and unweave our bodies, Stephen said. He was raving all night about a Black Panther. The movements which work revolutions in the world are born out of the dreams and visions in a peasant's heart on the hillside. The faults of the burglar are the qualities required in the detective. There is not past, no future, everything flows in an eternal present. Writing in English is the most ingenious torture ever devised for sins committed in previous lives. The English reading public explains the raison d'être of their existence in their newspapers every morning. Welcome, O life. I go to encounter for the millionth time the reality of experience and to forge in the smithy of my soul the uncreated conscience of my race. Writing in English is the most ingenious torture ever devised for sins committed in previous lives. Every decision you make puts you in a different world. Conflict is the origin of everything. I will not serve that in which I no longer believe. The less we learn, the more we know. The golden rule, all things whatsoever ye would that men should do to you, do ye even so unto them. The ghosts of our dead are everything we remember, and everything we have forgotten. We shall all be judged according to our deeds. We are all immortal until proven otherwise. You don't have to prove anything. The reason for living was to get ready to stay dead a long time. An artist is a creature driven by demons. I never know what I think about something until I read what I have written on it. I decline to accept the end of man. I did not know then that there are things worse than pride. I'm a failed poet. Maybe every novelist wants to write poetry first, finds he can't, and then tries the short story, which is the most demanding form after poetry. Genius goes around the world in its youth incessantly apologizing for having large feet. What wonder that later in life it should be inclined to raise those feet too swiftly to fools and bores. I merely try to write as the human being I understand myself to be, the best way I can. The creative artist seems to be almost the only kind of man that you could never meet on neutral ground.